Bitch, I'm back. I'm Aisha.
And I'm Delancey. And we are presenting on Beyonce's Lemonade. And we argue that Beyonce is the face of the mainstream, and we think that Lemonade is a really good representation of that because Lemonade incorporates a lot of elements that are sort of not typical of the mainstream, and Beyonce embraces those elements and still manages to create an album that's widely accepted as being part of the mainstream.
So the first song that we are going to discuss is probably one of her most popular songs on the album, which is Formation. Formation is an anthem about Black female empowerment, and I think that was able to resonate with a lot of women in this country, and that was why the song became so successful.
It sort of relates back to what we've talked about the mainstream becoming more socially conscious.
With the Black female, Black woman empowerment, she uses afros and baby hairs. In this society, there's a standard for beauty. And until recently, a lot of Black women felt the pressure to having to straighten their hair because that's what society told them is what looks good and what you should be looking like. And she references the afros and baby hairs, saying like that's acceptable and like be your natural self. Don't let anyone try to conform you.
Beyonce also tries to further empower women as a whole by sort of embracing her own sexuality and not being afraid to acknowledge it. One of the lines in the song is, "When he F me good, I take his ass to Red Lobster." That's good delivery. Yeah. I think traditionally we tend to think of sort of the male as being the one who sort of demands the sex and then offers a reward in return,
like monetary reward, or just like, hey, I'm famous, like you should be happy that you're like sleeping with me, like you should just be happy that you're with me because of who I am.
So lines like that sort of kind of create a role reversal, and Beyonce is sort of saying that women can occupy that role that traditionally we view as only belonging to men. Especially
when her husband is Jay-Z, who is also like a very powerful Black man in America.
Yes.
So for her to her sexual dominance over him is like, Beyonce's that girl.
He could take her ass to Red Lobster. She could also take his ass to Red Lobster.
So definitely in the chorus when she uses the terms like slay, I slay. And okay, ladies, now let's get in formation. That's the anthem part of it. When she uses those terms in that anthem, it reminds me of her past song, what is it? Who Run the World? Girls. Who Run the World? Girls. And I think that's definitely something that Beyonce's always had, is that woman empowerment songs and anthems.
I mean, she believes strongly in that concept of, like, women empowering other women.
Right.
Sort of lifting each other up in a society where men are constantly trying to beat them down. One of the things that's really important about what Beyonce's doing in this song is she tries to sort of embody a variety of different people, not only racially, but class-wise and sexuality-wise.
Another aspect of this album that made it so enticing and mainstream, other than it being Beyonce, was the visual album aspect of this and the exclusivity that was behind it. Beyonce and Jay-Z created the music stream title for that purpose of giving themselves their own platform to release their own music.
The visual aspect of the album is a prime example of sort of this mainstream artist doing something that's not so typical, but that automatically becomes accepted because she has such widespread popularity and has traditionally kind of followed cultural trends in the past.
Right. Beyonce standing on top of a sunken police car. I think that references the limited help that was given to victims of Hurricane Katrina. And she's definitely making a statement with her position and her power standing on top of the police car.
And she's physically choosing to stand above or overcome these forces that didn't offer marginalized people the help that they both needed and deserved as American citizens.
And in another scene, there's a little Black boy in a hoodie dancing in front of a police officer, and the white police officer raises his arms, and a screen pops up that says, "Stop shooting us." which reverses the roles of how it typically is with blacks saying like, please stop shooting us, to white police officers. And so clearly she's making a massive statement, especially during the time of Black Lives Matters and the protests that were happening during this time.
It's almost like a satire of these counter arguments of white lives matter, all lives matter,
Blue Lives Matter,
which are right, which are trying to subvert the larger message of Black Lives Matter. So one of the sort of elements of this whole album is it sort of traces a journey through Beyonce and Jay-Z's relationship. Lemonade was, well, it's speculated that Lemonade was written sort of in response to Jay-Z's cheating on Beyonce. So each song sort of represents a different chapter in the healing process of their recovering from his infidelity. So the final chapter in the album is redemption, and that is represented through the song All Night. The term redemption refers to sort of the awareness of one's sin and sort of being saved from evil. The overarching message in this song is, it's actually really interesting because it's not saying that Jay-Z needs to be the one to sort of bring about the healing in this relationship. It's Beyonce kind of taking ownership for that and saying, I'm going to make something out of sort of these pieces that are left of my relationship.
which I think follows the trend of the women empowerment, saying like, hey, women, like, take control of the situation.
I think one of the really interesting things about All Night also is that on a very surface level, it just sort of sounds like your traditional love ballad, and people who don't know what Beyonce is trying to do with this album, or maybe who aren't familiar with the story of Beyonce and Jay-Z's relationship, might honestly just hear a song like this and take it as a love ballad of sung by somebody who's in a very happy relationship. It's a really simple song. There's a lot of repetition in the lyrics, and I think that also sort of enables it to become mainstream. It sort of fits in a little bit to what we talked about as the modern easy listening. It's a very digestible, palatable song, and I think that Beyonce sort of utilizes those aspects in order to advance this sort of more complex social commentary. So she's kind of relying on her mainstream status as a way to convey maybe more complicated messages.
And with this song, you know, being a simple song, I think it was created for the purpose that you were supposed to listen to this album straight through and go through all of the phases of emotions when dealing with infidelity. And although you may hear this song out of this context of this album and be like, oh, this is a nice song and, you know, it's simple and it's great, I think it being a part of this album definitely gave it more meaning and more complexity. And that's why I think it's important that when listening to albums, there's a reason and purpose behind each song. This album, I think people were able to listen to the entire thing and understand every feeling that she was having throughout the entire album. One of her lesser known songs on the album, which was definitely a big transition for her, was Daddy Lessons, which was her crossover into country, and it features the Dixie Chicks. This song was a song that was supposed to be sung to her father, and talks about the lessons that she learned from him and how to be a strong woman and how to stand up for herself and have that empowerment within her.
That sort of training her to be a soldier is another effort to subvert traditional gender roles. Usually those kind of violent physical roles are, we view them only as being occupied by men.
And she has a line in the song that's, he told me when he's gone, here's what you do when trouble comes to town and men like me come around, oh, my daddy said shoot. Which shows from a young age that she would learn how to protect herself from men, and it's known that her father cheated on her mother, and that was a big role in her divorce. And she makes it clear in this song that, you know, she's working on forgiving her father like she's forgiving Jay-Z, and having two men, important men in your life, hurt you in that sense, and seeing your mother go through something similar to you, I think speaks volumes to why this album was created and the way it was, and who she's trying to connect with and the audience that she's trying to reach. And her,
in allowing herself to be vulnerable in this album, and especially in this song, she's sort of flipping the narrative of. I think people generally think if you get cheated on, you're supposed to leave him, and if you stay with him, that's somehow weak. And she is kind of proving through her own experiences that forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength.
And it's not necessarily that easy to just leave
Right.
in the middle of, like, in a relationship that you've committed your entire life to. And the main importance of this song is the crossover into country music. Beyonce being probably the most mainstream artist and one of the biggest pop stars of our time right now.
Universally liked human being.
Her crossing over into country for the first time was something very unexpected on this album. And I think her crossover into country may have been one of the reasons the song didn't do as well as the others, because it only hit number 41 on the Billboard Hot 100.
But it was still sort of accepted, and I mean, it's a Beyonce song, and I think it sort of paved the way in some sense for, more current songs like the Florida Georgia Line song.
Right, the Meant to Be by BB Rexa and Florida Georgia Line, which I think she maybe have opened the doors for that crossover with pop and country, and led to that success of that song.
I think very few artists could have crossed over to country like this and still gotten on the charts.
Yeah, especially with Meant to Be, because it's still very pop. And in this song, she still has her southern flair to the song, like southern pop. But there's very, very, like, heavy southern country instruments in it that you know that this is a country song. And especially having the Dixie Chicks feature in the song. And this song also relates back to the idea of title and what that was created for. Most of the music videos you can find on YouTube because of how popular they are, but it was extremely hard, and I could not find a music video on this song for Daddy Lessons on YouTube, and basically had to sign up for the 30-day free trial in order to see the music video for this lesson, for Daddy Lessons. And I think that's the point, and what she wanted was that exclusivity to be there and for people to want to go out and sign up for her stream.
It's interesting to think about, and I wrote about this a little bit in my live music reflection, but I think it's interesting to think about mainstream audiences versus underground audiences. I think most times underground audiences sort of are more dedicated to the artists that they're really passionate about, in terms of they dedicate a lot of time to listening to all of their songs and getting to know the full range of their collections, whereas if you're listening to a more mainstream artist, you kind of just know the popular songs and then maybe don't pay as much attention to the lesser known songs.
Right.
And so by putting songs like this on Tidal, it sort of ensures that people who want to hear Beyonce's things and like hear what she's trying to say need to go out of their way and find it. So it's only people that are really passionate about her and the messages that she's trying to send who are, again, going out of their way to get on Tidal and experience her visual album.
And I remember the hype of this album when it first came out, and you were only able to access it through Tidal, and everyone just signed up for the 30-day free trial. And yes, a lot of people also dropped Tidal after the 30-day free trial, but also a lot of people stayed and stuck with it because more artists were joining Tidal and just putting their music on there exclusively, which I think speaks numbers to Beyonce and the power that she has to even create a stream with Jay-Z and have the limited access that they want and still be as successful as they are with these albums.
I think she's just a great example of a mainstream artist who almost has sort of an underground mentality, like still being willing to experiment, still maintaining her integrity with what she's doing, which I guess her popularity sort of gives her the liberty to do those things. She is so ingrained in the mainstream that she can take these risks and she can make an unprecedented album like this and still find success. Bottom line, Beyonce's just a hot, badass lady. And she's so mainstream that she can do whatever the heck she wants and people still like it and they pay for it.
We out.